Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest questions there is by looking at the system we use to answer it, the scientific framework that tries, and I mean really tries, to define life itself. Seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But as we're about to see, the answer gets tangled up in a huge, complex web of science, philosophy, and, you guessed it, human incentives. To help us unpack this whole system, we're going to lean on our guide, Carl Zimmer, and we'll start with this powerful metaphor right at the heart of his book. Okay, so think about the definition of life. It's not some big, solid, concrete wall. Instead, it's more like a line drawn in the sand, you know? Science does this all the time. It draws these lines to help us organize reality, to make sense of everything. But here's the catch. That line is always vulnerable. A big wave of new knowledge comes crashing in, and suddenly it's washed away. So why do we even bother drawing this line in the first place? Well, the incentives are actually really practical and pretty powerful. I mean, think about it. In medicine, you absolutely have to determine the boundary between life and death. For scientists, research funding often depends on studying living things. And if you're exploring space, you kind of need to know what you're even looking for out there. All of these big institutions, hospitals, universities, space agencies, they all rely on having clear operational rules. That creates this huge incentive to make the definition stable, to lock it down. And NASA is a perfect example of this in action. Back in the 1990s, the hunt for extraterrestrial life was really heating up, and it basically forced NASA to formalize a working definition. So they got a group of scientists together, and by the end of a single dinner, they had boiled it all down to this one sentence. And this definition just took off. It's only 11 words. It's so crisp, so elegant. It started popping up in textbooks, in presentations, everywhere. It really felt like, okay, great, we've settled it. But yeah, not so fast. Just like every other definition that came before it, this one really started to struggle when it came face-to-face with the staggering complexity of the real world. See, the thing about these checklist-style definitions is that they always, and I mean always, run into trouble. They create these weird anomalies, these edge cases that just don't fit. These are the waves we were talking about, the ones that come in and just completely blur our nice, neat line in the sand. We're talking about things like viruses or lab-grown brain organoids, cryptobiotic organisms, and even synthetic biology. All these challengers, they have some of the classic hallmarks of life, but they're missing others. And this forces scientists to go back to the drawing board, constantly tweaking the rules. The result isn't one clean answer. Nope, it's what Zimmer calls an ocean of definitions. You've got literally hundreds of alternatives floating around, and you can see the variety here. I mean, that last one is just brutally honest, isn't it? So, if this whole system is so shaky, why does it even stick around? Why do we keep trying to draw this line? The framework endures because, well, it's practical. As the philosophers Leonardo Beach and Sarah Green argue, we don't actually need to find the one true definition of life. A lot of the time, just having a working definition is good enough for the specific task at hand. And this right here, this is the absolute key. This is where the crisis in perception comes in. The problem isn't that we don't have a definition. The crisis emerges when we assume the boundary is settled, when in reality it's just a provisional construct, something shaped by our tools, our incentives, and our constantly evolving theories. And make no mistake, this is not just some dusty academic debate. Our shifting line in the sand has massive implications for our future. Every time we push the boundaries in medicine, we have to ask, when does life begin and end? When we build new organisms, have we created new life? And what about AI? Could a machine be considered alive? And when we search for life out there in the cosmos, how will we even know it when we see it, especially if it's truly, profoundly alien? So the crucial point here is that how we define life is completely interconnected with our most profound ethical, technological, and existential questions. The system for defining life isn't just a scientific tool. It's a mirror reflecting our own evolving understanding of our place in the universe. Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.